If you're tuning in to husbandry, make sure you subscribe right now, because today's topic reaches deep into the agricultural past and pulls out a technique so effective that modern gardeners often overlook it simply because it's too simple. For the next minute, stay with me as we uncover a mulch mix used long before commercial straw bales or package bark even existed. This isn't folklore or romanticized homesteading nostalgia. It's a method used across ancient farmsteads and early rural homesteads, one that consistently produced darker soil, stronger crops, and longer-lasting moisture than the three mulches most people rely on today. And what makes it powerful is that it wasn't created out of convenience. It was created out of necessity by people who quite literally could not afford crop failure. Once you understand how it works, you'll see immediately why it can outperform straw, wood chips and leaves in nearly every category. The origins of the primitive mulch mix reveal why it works so well. Long before mulching became a modern gardening buzzword, farmers relied on whatever organic waste materials they had in abundance. But instead of using any single material, many rural communities, particularly in Eastern Europe, parts of the Middle East and pre-industrial Asia, created a blended mulch made from three simple ingredients: grass cuttings, half-rotted weeds, and animal bedding scrapings. They mixed these materials together not because they were following a written method, but, because their daily chores naturally produced this combination. What they discovered over generations was that this mix stayed moist longer than straw, improved soil faster than wood chips, and created fewer nitrogen imbalances than pure leaf mulch. What made it so effective was, the balance. Grass added nitrogen, weeds added microbial activity, and bedding added structure. Together they created a mulch with enough bulk to insulate, enough life to decompose at a productive pace, and enough variety to feed soil microbes instead of overwhelming them. Instead of waiting months or even years for wood chips to break down, this primitive mix, it actually began enriching the soil within just a few days. The mix works because it decomposes really fast, while still protecting the soil surface. To understand why this blend outperforms more common mulches, it helps to compare how each traditional option behaves. Straw is lightweight, decomposes slowly, and honestly often blows away in the wind. Wood chips last a long time, but pull nitrogen from the soil while they're decomposing. Leaves, on the other hand, can mat down, forming a nearly waterproof barrier that actually slows water infiltration. The primitive mix, avoids all three problems. The grass, it breaks down quickly, inviting bacteria and fungi right into the mulch layer. And those weeds, especially if they're a bit wilted or half-dried, bring in minerals that were pulled deep from the subsoil. And the bedding scrapings, which often have small amounts of manure and these microfibers of hay, they provide both aeration and, a slow-release nutrient profile. Once you spread it on soil, the mix forms a loose, breathable, sponge-like layer. Water passes through easily, and it stays locked beneath for days. The mix never compacts into a slab, and because it's all mixed together, it doesn't rot unevenly. Each component decomposes at its own pace, giving roots a steady feed of nutrients rather than a sudden burst that washes away. A gardener today can replicate the same mix using materials already available. You don't need a barnyard or livestock to recreate this blend. The modern equivalent requires only 3 ingredients: fresh grass clippings, soft green waste, and any sort of partially used animal bedding, store-bought chicken bedding, rabbit bedding, goat bedding, or even dried stable sweepings work. If you have no access to animals at all, dried yard waste from herbaceous plants can stand in for the bedding layer, as long as it's fibrous enough to add bulk. The simplest method is to gather the materials in a pile and let them rest for 2 or 3 days. This brief pause allows the heat of early decomposition to settle down. You don't want a compost pile. You want a mulch that is alive but not hot. After a couple of days, the mix becomes soft, cool, and slightly earthy smelling, which means the microbial cycle has started. To apply it, you'll want to spread it, about 2 to 4 inches thick across the base of your crops. In a vegetable patch, this layer will really help suppress weeds, keep the moisture in, and start feeding the soil in, under a week. One of the strongest benefits is that this mulch can be reapplied continuously throughout the growing season. As it breaks down, you just add more on top. Simple as that. Ancient homesteaders, they treated it as both mulch and top-dress fertilizer. You can do the same. This mulch mix, actually improves soil faster than its modern counterparts. One reason this method became so widespread historically is that, households measured soil quality by results, not by laboratory tests. They noticed richer soil, stronger plants, and honestly, easier tilling after just a single season. Today, gardeners using this technique often report the same thing. The rapid decomposition means your soil receives a continual rain of organic particles. Earthworms move in quickly, Water retention improves without waterlogging, which is brilliant. Soil temperature stays stable throughout the day, and that, it reduces plant stress dramatically. A practical example, then. Tomatoes grown under this mulch can often skip a full week of watering, even during dry heat. Root crops like carrots and beets, they tend to grow straighter and deeper thanks to that consistent moisture. If you work with raised beds, this mix fills in the gaps between soil particles and increases the organic percentage quickly. Before you know it, you've got a loamy, workable bed by season's end. This ancient idea remains valuable because it is simple, cheap, and proven. What sets this mulch apart is that it came from real daily life, not theory. Rural families used it because it worked, and because every ingredient came from chores they were already doing. There was no waste, no cost, and no need for specialized materials. For homesteaders today, even those living in urban or suburban settings, the same logic applies. You can create a superior mulch with materials that you would normally throw away. If this guide helped deepen your understanding or gave you a new method to try, Make sure you subscribe to Husbandry, share this with someone who loves history-grounded farming knowledge, and keep these old practical traditions alive.